Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Edward, another one of our flip lessons. Today we're on number 9 in our interactive notebook. We're going to do Erie Canal Political, so we're going to talk a little bit about how the government and people in government shaped the building of the Erie Canal. We've talked around this a little bit. Should be a relatively short video, but as always, remember to fill in the blank notes on your page. If you don't have the page when you're at home, you can either get it from, make sure you get it off the current class, make sure you get it off of Schoology. All right, here we go. All right. Politics is the study of government and politics. So what does that mean? We're going to be studying government institutions. So a political historian looking at the Erie Canal isn't necessarily going to just talk about how the canal was built, not just going to talk about how land impacted the canal, but how government institutions, how the president may play the role, how a governor may play the role, how getting a bill passed may play the role, how bills, laws, rights, all of those things play a role in the development of that event. Okay? Talk a little bit more about those buzzwords in the next slide. All right. So obviously these are not just all the political buzzwords, but these are the words that should be kind of getting into your head when you hear things about politics, okay? Voting for a political party. We're talking about it right now with the 2020 presidential election on the horizon, but there is going to be an election in 2019 for a lot of midterm Congress people, things like that, and we'll talk a little bit about that in November. Our three branches of government: President, Congress, Supreme Court. That's at the national level. We also have that pretty much the same thing at the state level, but we call that a governor, our assembly, and our Senate. And then we have a New York State Supreme Court as well, but we model that over our federal government. Laws and rights. We make laws to protect rights. Laws don't typically give us rights by the Constitution. We have those, and laws are just going to protect it. There's going to be a multitude of more: Constitution, Declaration of Independence, but we'll kind of talk about those as it goes. But those are some of the basic kind of, I hear these words, I think of something political. All right, political leader. I don't know why the pictures are not showing up along the bottom right now, but we'll just go with it. We already started. DeWitt Clinton, we've talked about him already in some of our others. He is kind of the overseer, the father figure, if you will, for the Erie Canal. When we get into this time period, he was a Democratic Republican. He's named to what is called the Erie Canal Commission. This group was kind of figuring out how to get the canal passed, figuring out where the canal should be, trying to find out where funding should come from and things like that. And he was named to it to kind of offer a political balance. So there was a couple people from other political parties on there, mainly the Federalists. So DeWitt Clinton was named to be on board to kind of balance it out, to say that, you know, one political party wasn't just deciding everything, to say that it was fair and balanced. With that, Clinton quickly became the leader on the canal, and a lot of people didn't think that this was going to happen, so he quickly became kind of a scapegoat on this. The canal was labeled as Clinton's ditch. It was going to be labeled as Clinton's folly. There's no way we were going to be able to build a 360-mile long, 40-foot wide, 4 feet deep canal from Albany to Buffalo. We had never done anything like this up until this point. We didn't have people qualified to do it. It was going to be a struggle, and many people thought that this was just going to be a big political kind of issue for DeWitt Clinton that he probably would never survive. But we've talked a little bit about this in the history. Clinton goes across New York State. He gets thousands of signatures to support the Erie Canal, and a canal bill is brought to the New York State government in 1817. It quickly passes the New York Assembly 64 to 36. It then goes from the Assembly to the Senate. It passes there 18 to 9. Obviously, there's more senators or less senators. We'll talk about the reasons for that in later videos. But then it had to get passed by this governor's board. In 1817, we had an acting governor, and there was 5 votes that they had to get, and it passes 3 to 2 there, which was a very close looking at the other ones. And mostly this was because people didn't think that this was feasible. They thought it was going to be a lot of money paid and getting no results, no return on the investments. But the bill passage, while Clinton's doing this, he's seen as a political leader. He's traveling the state, and he becomes elected as governor in 1817. He stays on as governor until 1823. Then for 2 years, he's not New York State's governor, and he becomes the governor again from in 1825 until his death a few years later. But the passing of the bill becomes kind of Clinton's legacy in a way, and really jumpstarts what he thought was going to be a political career that would land him the presidency. Not quite, but he was one of our more popular governors for a good time period. I didn't know whether or not we should get into this section, but I think this is good to talk about kind of some stuff that's going to come on later on in our course, is this issue of federalism, all right? What federalism means, basically, and this is going to be a vocabulary word later, it's going to be on a vocabulary, is there's some things that state governments do, there's some things that federal governments do, and then there's some things in the middle that both of them do. And so typically something like this, again, we're trying to figure this out in 1817. This would probably, like today, the only thing I can kind of think of is when we built the federal highway system, which was used by both the state and national governments. The commission, one of the things, they expected to get some national help on this. They expected that the national government would see, hey, this canal isn't just going to help New York, it's going to help our whole entire country. It's going to connect the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River to the Atlantic Ocean in ways we had never foreseen before. But that was a big no from the Congress. Well, not necessarily from the Congress. Congress does pass a bill that would provide funding for canals, not just necessarily the Erie Canal, but other canals throughout the United States. That quickly got vetoed by James Madison. War of 1812 had a lot to do with that. The War of 1812, very interesting with the Erie Canal, kind of caused a lot of reasons for people to support the canal, to be able to, it saw how poor our transportation system was during the War of 1812, but also we just fought this war and we owe money to people. Having a big investment in these resources might not be the best idea. But that leads us back to New York State paid for all of this with loans, with grants. Private businesses kind of pitched in as well. All I think it's some $7.3 million from 1817 to 1825 came from investors in New York State. Well, that's our flip lesson for today. Hopefully we got 5 out of 5 on all of the questions. If you didn't, make sure we're not double clicking and make sure we're using our notes. We'll see about some ways to kind of get some bonus points on there. But till next time, 7th graders, Allard out.